Reading comes, of course, from Mary Oliver's work, When Death Comes. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending as all music does toward silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. I don't think I have ever finished this presentation without some tears from me. So I have Kleenex ready, and this can be an emotional one for me. Mary Oliver was a private person. She rarely gave interviews, preferring, as she said, to let her work speak for her. So I'm going to honor that and refrain from offering you a bunch of facts about her admittedly amazing life. Instead, I want to let her poetry be the legacy that she wanted you to hear and remember her by. And I'll interweave it with some thoughts of my own about mortality, which is much on my mind the last few years. And for clarity, and so I don't have to say quote and end quote over and over again, I'll raise my hand like this when I'm speaking Mary Oliver's words, okay? So to begin, I want to share an excerpt from Mary's poem, To Live in This World. It happens to be number 696 in the Gray Hymnals, one of our readings. But for now, just listen. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. To let it go, not an easy task. My mother's father was born in 1894. Grandpa Steggy was the oldest of 7 children, so when his parents could no longer afford a coachman, care of his family's horses fell to him at the age of 6 in the year 1900. Different times. Horses were transportation then, not recreation. Even living in New York City most of his adult life, he wouldn't see his first automobile until he was in his 20s. In my 20s, when Grandpa was 98 years old, I sat on his bed in a small town hospital in eastern Ohio. My mom had taken a break to play with our kids in the grassy courtyard. And Grandpa had been asleep for several days, and so we figured it might not be long. I held his hand, a hand that just the week before had been hoeing in my mom's garden. And straightening up, he had cursed his arthritis one more time, saying, as always, "Johnny, don't ever get old." I didn't say anything because after he had mumbled his way through all the names of his kids and my siblings before finally lighting on Johnny, I wasn't about to correct him with JD, which I had changed my name to just a couple years before. I sat on the side of the bed just looking at this quiet old man. And I don't know if I said it aloud or just in my head, but I said, "You can go whenever you're ready, Grandpa." And as though in response, the pauses between his breaths got longer and longer, until the pauses were far longer than the breaths. And within a few minutes, that last one more breath never came. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. At his memorial service, I never cried. I cry in Disney movies, graduations, thoughtful conversations, you name it. But not at Grandpa's service. I thought there must be something wrong with me. It took me years to realize that maybe those last quiet moments with him had been a bigger gift than I realized, offering a chance at a different relationship with death. In her poem, The Uses of Sorrow, Mary Oliver writes, "Someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this too was a gift." A box full of darkness. Not all deaths are beautiful or peaceful. A former student of mine, the most brilliant I had ever worked with, chose my alma mater for engineering school. I was so proud. At the end of his freshman year there, he turned his vast intelligence toward engineering an elegant method for suffocating himself on the first day of summer break. It worked flawlessly. His body was discovered several days later by smell. 25 years later, I'm still angry and confused. Another student, a year and a half after losing his only parent, his car left a rural road late at night and ran into a large boulder. Nobody saw it happen, but the debris left at the scene made it clear that any suffering was brief. For him, at least, but not for his little brother and sister, left completely alone in the world. I could go on and on. You probably can too. Anne's young cousin who didn't wake up one morning. Mentors and friends gone too soon. Dear friends cut down by cancer, ALS, dementia, addiction, despair, heart attacks, and on, right? The day before Mary Oliver died in January 2019, another former student of mine died suddenly. I had seen him just 5 days before at the Pennsylvania State Fair, and he had been radiant with the enthusiasm of new projects. Let it go? Let it go? Death is a thief. It steals away those we love with little warning, no right of return, no due process, no redress of grievances. Who wants to be friends with a thief? Especially one so capricious and disloyal, one who rips our hearts out time after time after time. I do. The Hebrew book of Genesis says, "From dust were you made, and dust ye shall be." And by now you probably know that it's true. We are literally made from the dust of dying stars. Most of the atoms that make up the stuff in this room, including our bodies, were forged in the blast furnaces of exploding supernova stars about 9 billion years ago. Before the explosions, only light elements like hydrogen and helium. After those explosions, dead neutron stars or black holes, and the surrounding space filled with precious heavy dust that gravity slowly collected into all this. Well, on the day those stars died, was death a thief or a midwife? This idea that the joy and creativity of life springs from the soil of death was a common thread in Mary's poetry. In The Kingfisher, she writes, "I think this is the prettiest world, so long as you don't mind a little dying." Carl Sagan once said, The secrets of evolution are time and death, end quote. There was a day in the late Cretaceous period, a truly dark day, it's probably a Monday, when death rode in here on a large asteroid. That was a hellish day to be a dinosaur. It wasn't exactly a good day for anyone on the planet, but for our mammalian ancestors, it turned out to be Independence Day, a birthday, Christmas and New Year's all in one, a huge gift, beautifully gift wrapped in the smell of settling dust and rotting meat. None of us would be here this morning. The incredible creative processes of the tertiary period would never have happened if the dinosaurs hadn't made way for us by dying. So on that day, was death a thief or a midwife? While he lived, my mother's father worked in his generation's equivalent of Silicon Valley. But his technological community was in New Jersey, and they were inventing electricity, motors and generators, new high-tech replacements for whale oil and horses and people power. My grandfather installed the first high-pressure steam turbines at Sing Sing Prison, turbines which powered the now infamous electric chair. He later served as chief engineer on the dredge that built Tangier Island in Chesapeake Bay. Rough work with rough men in rough conditions. My grandfather had a different rude name for every ethnicity in Europe. He had only one rude name for all the ethnicities of Africa and another one for all those of Asia. My grandfather had clear categories for people, constructed out of ethnic and racial stereotypes, a worldview that segmented his view of everyone he met. And he was never overtly hateful. He just believed the stereotypes. And the culture in which he grew and lived supported that. Confirmation bias and rough conditions just made it obvious to him, as in, that's just the way it is. In spite of all that, I think my grandfather's life is worth honoring. I know that the same day his second child was born, he was fired from his job at a silk dyeing company because he reported them for dumping many tons of toxic chemicals into the Passaic River. Grandpa kind of shrugged and took a job as the chief engineer at St. Joseph's Hospital, although he had plenty of rude names for Catholics, too. He was 50 when that happened, and he worked at St. Joseph's for the next 25 years, overseeing the construction of facilities that more than doubled the hospital's physical plant, helping to save and improve countless lives as a result. As well as I loved him and still do, as glad as I am that we have pictures of him holding our young children, I'm also glad he wasn't around for their formative years, passing on stereotypes and prejudices. So, was my grandfather stolen from me? Or was his passing a gift given by him to his great-grandchildren, and the hope that they represented even to him for a better, kinder, more just future? I was talking about that with my daughter, the UU Reverend Robin Stillwater, and she said, yeah, Dad, just imagine if pre-Civil War plantation owners were still around serving in the Senate. And we joked about how we have that today. But of course, things are better, and it's partly because dinosaurs of all kinds have their day and then die. Well, I'm a dinosaur too. This is my day, and it is going to end. Maybe this afternoon, maybe 50 years from now, but it will end. I can hear evolution's call for my death already in my struggle to get the pronouns right for young family and friends in transition or questioning. I see it in my indignant arguments against veganism and the implicit bias of my entire generation when it comes to race and gender. It shows up in my driving when I could bike, and using the dryer when we have a clothesline right there. My death, too, will be a gift. I want to read more of that same Mary Oliver poem, Kingfisher, because I deliberately took that line out of context a few minutes ago. The kingfisher rises out of the black wave like a blue flower. In his beak he carries a silver leaf. I think this is the prettiest world, so long as you don't mind a little dying. How could there be a day in your whole life that doesn't have its splash of happiness? There are more fish than there are leaves on 1,000 trees. And anyway, the kingfisher wasn't born to think about it or anything else. When the wave snaps shut over his blue head, the water remains water. Hunger is the only story he has ever heard in his life that he could believe. I don't say he's right, neither do I say he's wrong. Religiously, he swallows the silver leaf with its broken red river, and with a rough and easy cry I couldn't rouse out of my thoughtful body if my life depended on it, he swings back over the bright sea to do the same thing, to do it as I long to do something, anything, perfectly. Whether you're a kingfisher or a person, to live is to eat, and to eat is to kill. We can argue about the relative harm of killing plants or killing animals, but either way, death is right there in every mouthful. From the Big Bang right through the next election and beyond, death and loss are inextricably linked to birth and creation. Yes, death is a thief, but also a midwife. It takes and gives with the same hands. My life is a gift only made possible by the deaths of stars, of dinosaurs, of deep mammalian ancestors, grandparents, and the dead animals and plants I ate for breakfast this morning. It's a gift that I will pay forward by getting my spoiled 20th century butt out of the way of 22nd century progress, whether I like it or not. But I don't want to die. I don't want to not exist. I want to be part of something permanent. I want to participate. I want some part of me to live on. And it does. A friend who loves my work had just lost her grandfather, who she calls Papa. And she asked me to write something hopeful about the afterlife that would ease her mind. I wrote, "Remember, our bodies are not things. We are flows. What was an apple yesterday is now me. And what was me yesterday is now Chesapeake Bay. Some of what was me when I just typed that has now flown out to become wind and weather, having been replaced by some millions of atoms that last week were your Papa. Another breath, another few million atoms that were once your Papa, and you, and the girl down the street, and everyone else who ever lived on this earth. You and me in and out day after day, commingling together on an interwoven planet of living flow. And before they were your Papa, those atoms were someone, something else. Giant redwoods, gentle giraffes, oceans, mountains, lava. Your Papa came from everything, was part of everything, and is everything still. Atoms and energy that once flowed through your Papa will go on to adventure as opalescent seashells, newborn infants that smell like God herself, starlight on the endless journey between galaxies, and the lightest, sweetest cornbread you ever tasted. Here's how Mary Oliver said it in her poem, Sleeping in the Forest. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed, nothing between me and the white fire of the stars but my thoughts. And they floated light as moths among the branches of the perfect trees. All night I heard the small kingdoms breathing around me, the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night I rose and fell as if in water, grappling with a luminous doom. By morning I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better. You know, our cultural metaphors warn us about death as this kind of hooded figure, right? Stealthily approaching, coming for us. Well, I'm learning to think about it the other way around. Death is already here. Death is inside every seed, every warm spring day, every birth, inside every pregnant moment, waiting for me with loving arms. I walk towards death, inexorably, inevitably. My only choice is whether to walk with my back to it, kind of fearful and closed, or to turn and embrace death with open arms, saying, welcome, thief, welcome, friend, I'm ready. I'm ready to share forward what you gave me, so that others, new others, may live and breathe and create a better world after me. Yeah, that all sounds nice, and I am sincere in it, but it doesn't patch up the emptiness left by people I love who were stolen away. The projects that Josh enthused about at the state fair will never happen. His family will miss him at every holiday, every birthday. I still hear my grandfather's voice every time I strip a wire or use his tools. And I wish he could see my children as adults. When people die, their absence remains, and everything's different without them. And for grieving survivors, the sorrow that death brings is as much a part of the landscape as lilies. And Mary's poem, The Lilies Break Open Over the Dark Water, expresses this beautifully, I think. She writes, and there you are on the shore, fitful and thoughtful, trying to attach them to an idea, some news of your own life. But the lilies are slippery and wild. They are devoid of meaning. They are simply doing from the deepest spurs of their being what they are impelled to do every summer. And so, dear sorrow, are you. Death is a disloyal, greedy thief. We can befriend him or not, but you know, you can't unfriend him, like on Facebook, any more than you can unfriend life. Death and life are that cute elderly couple who still have tickle fights under the covers and make flirty eyes as they walk together hand in hand by the lily pond. And together, they do horrible, wonderful things. This, too, is a gift. The grieving process, whether it's for loved ones or for a favorite poet, or for the losses that come with global pandemics or the consequences of a broken climate, grief is arduous and personal. Today, as we remember Mary Oliver and contemplate impermanence, let us live knowing that death's gift to us is no less than life itself, given to us at birth and again with every meal, but given by us only once, a gift of renewal to all who come after. Let us celebrate existence and mourn our losses. Let our rememberings and our sorrows be a gift to ourselves, to one another, and to all those who come after us. Amen, and may it be so.